Hi guys, welcome to Pax Europiana. This is my conclusions and recommendations for the 2022 visit to Georgia and to support Georgia in the European Union. I call for the EU to grant the EU potential or candidate status. Actually, technically, I think they are very advanced here. They have deserved even the candidate status. But essentially is to give the clear European membership perspective to this beautiful country. And it has deserved it. They have made really tremendous efforts here the last 20 years since the Rose Revolution, since the turn to the West, where they started Western integration and broke with the ex-Soviet legacy. That's really very impressive. Of course, you know, this country, and I want to show you a bit the geography, mountains in the north and in the south to Armenia and to Russia, and the Black Sea, and then Azerbaijan on the other side. You know, and beyond Armenia and Azerbaijan there's Iran. So it's really very complicated situation they have here, and they have made enormous progress, and they have really done significant and remarkable progress in the last 20 years. It's soon 20 years, next year 20 years, 19 years. This is a major achievement. And why I focus on the Rose Revolution? Because countries need such a turn to the West. They need to break with the Soviet past, and they need to escape this communist kind of lethargy that came after the transition. And they had civil war first, and made a long interview about the economic history with Gia Yandari. You can watch it on my podcast. But the situation is, it's remarkable what they have achieved, but the challenge is huge. And countries, small countries on the periphery between the big powers cannot do everything alone. They must be in a form of union. This I believe very strongly. You can choose the Russian way, that is basically you are occupied and destroyed and integrated brutally by military force, or you can do the European Union, and then you are in a union of equality, freedom, human rights, democracy, and of course of standards and property rights, and yes, a union of freedom. This is what we are. The European Union is a union of freedoms. Of course, freedom requires responsibility and regulation, and there are 1,000 things that can be improved in the European Union, and every single day we do it. That's the whole idea. Of course, I'm also critical to many things in Brussels, and that could also be improved, and we could be faster, better, greener, cleaner, more prosperous and less regulated and lower taxed. Yes, that's all true. But the real thing is that there is the security, the common standards, the common markets access, and the freedoms of the European Union, and the treatment, the equality in the treatment of the people and of the member states. Yeah. It's a big empowerment, of course, to be a full member of the European Union that Georgia still needs to deserve and to earn, because also in Georgia there are considerable things today which are not good. I mentioned it. You need to give more rights to the regions. One region has a lot of rights in Batumi, and it's booming. And they have all this regional self-representation organization. They have even the Federal Constitutional Court, but the other regions seem not to have the same level of rights, and also not the same level of responsibility and of development. So federalism is very important, dear friends, in Georgia. It's a federal Georgia in a federal European Union, and there is also a very good economic argument to be made, because with federalization you basically give more powers to the region. You empower the regional, the people who live in the regions. Also you empower the authorities then to compete for investment, to develop their region better, and also then to make sure that all land and all people participate on a fair and equal and transparent basis in the decision making and the economic development. And that's much more effective than any other form of governance, because then all land values rise, all areas can be reached, there is less pockets of poverty, and there's more equitable development. That's the European SME model. That's very important. Additionally, I have made this media splash in the Georgia Today. I'm very happy about it. Additionally, it's important, of course, to put the currency on a firm fundament in the European currency system. I recommend Georgia to do it like Montenegro and like Kosovo, to adopt the euro and basically be in a way radical, but it's much better because the lari is working. Yes, it's not as bad as the hryvnia or the lei in Moldova, but and other currencies in the regions, but it's much better. Actually, there is no reason for a small economy of 3.5 million people to have their own currency. And it also leads to a lot of problems ultimately. And it's much better when you have this stability, the currency pack and the integration, like we have done it in Bulgaria, in Bosnia, in Macedonia, and also in Kosovo and in Montenegro, but they are ready to adopt the euro. It was much better. Of course, it makes some aspects difficult because the government really has to reform. It also makes only sense for countries which are really reforming, but Georgia is reforming, and which are really on the way to the European Union, and that should be also the case now for Georgia. It has deserved it. It's a European country, that's certainly no doubt. Whenever, you know, there is maybe a lack of knowledge of Georgia in the European Union leaders, we have to also improve that. And there is a common task for all politicians. That's why I called also for European consensus for all political parties, because the biggest problem in this country is this very toxic political dispute, which we also had in Austria before the EU, and still we have it today. But of course everything is a bit smoother once you are inside. So what the country needs, all parties together and put this European question out of this context, and also release the political prisoners. That's really very annoying, to put journalists in prison and to put former presidents in prison. You know, we also put some of them in, we have a former minister who was serving jail time, and so on and so on. That's really good if you do it properly. But just, you know, for spite and hatred, and with flimsy charges, and you know, very clearly politically, it's not the way to do this. And then you have this very toxic politicalization, of course Russia being fully engaged in that one, and they saw this, they want to have this toxic confrontation, because that's benefits, that's blocking the country, that's blocking the reforms, that's blocking EU accession. And so you should be smarter than that. And 82% of the Georgians want to be in the European Union, so let them be. Here at the airport, actually, and also in Batumi, I liked it very much. Everywhere there is a EU flag, at the check-in, at the check-out, wherever you go, at the streets. Here, Georgia is fully flagged up for the European Union. When I remember, I was in Serbia now some weeks ago. There was not a single European flag, if not a European embassy. The French embassy had a European flag, the German embassy, yes, but nobody else. So that was really deeply worrying. And here you see such a fantastic number of European flags, almost too much. Some of course joke, because you cannot join just by putting the flags out. You have to do the work, but Georgia has done enormous work in all the key sectors which I'm normally working, like from the cadastre, from the property sector, from the banking sector, from the SME sector, from the institutional support for companies, from the whole governance reform, digital governance. This is working better than in many EU member states. Let's not forget, Georgia is one of the, I think, from all the new countries, by far the best when it comes to fighting corruption. The transparency index is enormously good. I think at 42, we have several EU member states from Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, even Italy, who are worse on the Transparency International. Let's not forget that. This is very important to mention as well. The transparency in the work of the police and justice is really very good in this country. they have done a lot, and congratulations. Also in doing business, in all these international rankings, it is extraordinary progress which was achieved here, and these other countries should first copy, because even in the EU some countries are worse than Georgia, and that's quite astonishing and impressive. Yes, I say Georgia should of course then in the foreign policy, because the EU very much is about foreign policy, even when we don't have so much, how can I say, we don't have so much progress as I wish we had. But now, especially since the war in Ukraine has escalated so much in 2022, we have made a lot of important foreign policy decisions, and Georgia has to be in that line. Joining the foreign policy means, of course, recognition of Kosovo. You can say not all countries have done that. Yes, I understand that argument very well, but it's for the new countries really the appropriate thing. And don't worry, it will not create any precedents for Serbia recognizing Abkhazia, because they also want to join the European Union, even when they are not fully aligned. They will not go into any kind of crazy methods, and you know, the relation with Russia is anyhow totally destroyed. Yes, so recognizing Kosovo is absolutely essential, and then of course it's also very important to have this fully adoption of the EU sanctions against Russia. This is also very important. Yeah? So we have to get in line all together, and Serbia is under heavy pressure to perform. And yes, it's a very good comparison with Serbia, because you can choose the right role model. Do you want to be like North Macedonia or Montenegro, or like Serbia? The direction of Serbia I don't recommend. Yeah? They have this balancing act, they got some advantages, but you don't have so much to offer in a way, because Serbia is in the center of the Balkans. It's an important transit route. Here I try to drum up support for Georgia as an important transit route, but you know, this is difficult and long-term in a way, and it's important, there's no doubt. Georgia is an important part of the Silk Road, and should be the central Silk Road is very important, yeah, no doubt. But you don't have the same leverage like Serbia has, and I would really go more the Macedonian way and build a strong partnership between Georgia and Macedonia, or Montenegro, or both, and then really reform in aligning the foreign policy fully and without hesitation. What the EU is deciding on foreign policy, Georgia decides as well, like they do it in Montenegro and in North Macedonia. It's complicated for them as well, it's complicated for you as well. And I understand the Russians are heavily intervening here, and the threat of a Russian invasion is always looming over Georgia, I understand that. But do they have the capacities to wage another war? I don't think so, because now they are really heavily engaged in Ukraine, and I think it's going dramatically badly for them, and it's extremely costly. So waging another war in the south, man, you can never exclude anything in the case of a dying empire, but that is in full decline, but I don't think so. And also the casus belli should be, you know, to carefully avoid it, no doubt, but joining the sanctions is absolutely necessary. And I understand it's economically difficult for your country, because there is such a huge Russian trade factor and import factor and export factor, and that's why the EU has to help, and that's why I call the euro for Georgia, and the changing of the trade patterns must be assisted also significantly in the infrastructure links, very important to Turkey, in the trade, in the air links, more air transport links towards the European Union, absolutely necessary. We need a special infrastructure connectivity program for Georgia, absolutely important, together with the Turkish partners. This is absolutely important in air and in rail and in highways. Here there is a massive need still for decent European infrastructure, and we need to invest. This is very important. That must be one section of the big debt package to come, and that's very important. Yeah. Then the other thing is also to introduce your products towards the European consumers. And this is also very important, the wine and all the great things Georgia has, but this must be also explained. And yeah, I'm already at the airport. There's the check-in. Yes, it's my video here in the shadow of the mountains of this airport, Kutaisi. I learned a lot about Georgia these days. It's my second time only here. Again, I apologize I didn't do more in my student days when there were a lot of Georgians already actively promoting at these times in the 90s and then in the important years when I was in Brussels and there was this Rose Revolution. But then it was already when the Orange and the Rose Revolution came in 2003 and 4. I was already back in Austria and then later focused on the Balkans. So it's not apologies. It's dramatically that we failed the Orange and Rose revolutions and we have had really, and the consequences 20 years later are dramatically. If all European leaders would have listened to the Orange and Rose revolution leaders back then, I mean, we would have avoided all these terrible wars later in 8 and in 14 and now in 22, and hundreds of billions of costs, and so many people would be still alive. But we allowed Russia to recover and then to wage war again. That's what they do with our money. So we need to really decouple Russia until the fall of that evil empire, and that's, I think, the absolute priority. I also call for sinking of all the Russian ships in the Black Sea in order to open the Black Sea for traffic again and to have it a free European sea like the others. And the Russian ships must be sunk, there is no doubt about it. And that is absolutely necessary, one by one, until they withdraw from Ukraine and accept the ceasefire, because they will not have such a drive to the Black Sea anymore, because their ships and assets will be sunk, their harbors will be boycotted and blockaded, and there will be no Russian trade on the Black Sea anymore. And that's the consequence of their military aggression, of their war. And let's not blame it on us or we provoked Russia or something like this. No, that's a dangerous, evil empire. It was so clear since Putin has said that he is missing the Soviet Union, which was the evil empire. Who misses the evil empire and wants to be Peter the Great again is definitely not part of the free or democratic or peaceful world. And so there must be clarity and containment in the Second Cold War, and we must be ready for that. We must fight, and we must also make sure that Ukraine is winning, and Georgia must do its contribution to that one. I made also, when I think about it, the foreign policy, the economic policy. Yeah, cut your taxes to 10%, it's also better, like in Macedonia, and that's much better, of course. Don't worry, the 15% of the OECD will not be in force anyhow. Join the OECD, yeah, that's not contradictory, that should be the aim. And also then to have the reforms. I can hardly recommend anything anymore because you have done all the good stuff and that's working very well. Do more of that. But now the things is really about European Union membership with all its attached infrastructure, regulatory security, the investment security, the internal market, and of course being in that internal market, the European standards, the market access, and the tourism potential. This is very good. On the energy front, maybe also to promote renewable energy. I saw a lot of empty fields. Can be a lot of solar projects still realized in this beautiful country. Sun you have a lot, land you have a lot. So I think there can be really major progress here in the future, and that's very good. Yeah, what else comes to my mind on this beautiful day? I think I have made most recommendations that from the infrastructure, from the economy, from the European Union. Yeah, sign the petition, absolutely sign the petition which we put out, and for EU potential candidate status, and get this done. And then basically Europeanize everything here, and that's really the way to do it. and attract more European investors, also Turkish, also from the rest of the world. They are investing as well in Vienna, don't worry. We must be open to investors from everywhere in the world, but based on European standards of regulatory security and the euro. I think the euro is still by far the most special and important recommendation I can make here in order to really underline that you could be then the gate to Europe here, also for the Middle East and for Central Asia. That's very useful to be. And also, yes, I forgot one recommendation context. Yeah, it's always very important when I will be conclusive. It's very important to join the Regional Cooperation Council in Sarajevo to build this alliance with the other countries. That's why I recommended also a long time ago to do that. Georgia is still not in the Central European Free Trade Agreement. Georgia is still not in the Regional Cooperation Council. That's very unfortunate, and that is actually a very good tool, this Regional Cooperation Council, also for Azerbaijan and Armenia, because that's also very important for your country, is to have a platform where you can regionally work together, not free plus free, not with Iran, hostile state, very dangerous, not with the state, criminal state Russia, but with, and Turkey of course in between somewhere at the moment, but of course our ally and partner. But they are also in the Regional Cooperation Council. So it's much more important when the free Southern Caucasus countries, they join the Western Balkans in that institution. It's working very well. And then you are very connected with all the friends from that country. You learn from them because they have gone now already, similar like Georgia, through excellent reform experiences. It will also have an effect on Armenia and Azerbaijan to be in that organizations, a very positive one. And so we are united and we build an alliance of these 9 countries to move together to the European Union. Now, of course, very logical when you are this EU potential candidate country, very soon, hopefully in 2 weeks. Yes! And then, of course, Armenia, Azerbaijan to also closer associate and ultimately to have a DCFTA and to be partners of the European Union and break them out of this grip of Russian power. Especially Armenia is ally in this enemy organization, the CSTO. That is very wrong. And then you need also to get Azerbaijan into this Regional Cooperation Council, and gradually we will bring them together, and this will be very important for peace. And then we have the right framework in the Regional Cooperation Council, and then in Sarajevo. It's a very nice place to meet. It can be also relocated if they are not really working very well. And that can be always going to Chisinau, one of my proposals, or to Ohrid. I have several proposals for the relocation, but that's another issue. Yeah, that's my conclusion of the European Georgia tour. I really love this country. It's very good. Build a consensus, join the European Union and adopt the euro. And all the other things, federal Georgia in a federal EU, I think it's very logical. Support your SMEs and make it a very successful country. That is, I think, the best way. And recognize Kosovo. I will not get tired to repeat that. And support Ukraine, Slava Ukraine. Not only the people, but also from the government policy. And don't imprison journalists and politicians, but regulate that a bit more decent European. Good. Welcome to Europe, Georgia. Thanks a lot for your hospitality. It was very interesting. I learned a lot about Georgia these days, and I will be back. Thanks a lot for your hospitality. All the best on your road to the European Union. And NATO, by the way, and adopt the euro. Good, I leave it here. Thanks a lot. Bye.